Welcome to Conversations with Friends, Episode 4. My name is Aro. This is Carla. And Conversations with Friends is an authentic discussion on how faith interacts with culture. And so this morning I want to jump into, a couple of weeks ago, in your sermon, you had this analogy talking about the power of words. And it was about a pillow and feathers. Can you just give a quick synopsis of your analogy?
Just so you know, it's not my illustration. Okay. It comes from the Jewish tradition.
I mean, are any of our illustrations ours?
No,
anyway.
Let's be honest. But it's about a man who was spreading rumors about another man within the community and ended up ruining his business. And so when he went to his rabbi to ask him what he could do, the rabbi told him, bring me back a pillow, feather pillow with a knife. I want you to go to the top of the clock tower in the middle of town. I want you to cut open the pillow. And he watched the feathers disperse all over the town. And then the rabbi said, now I want you to go and I want you to collect those feathers. And he's like, that's impossible. And he's like, that's exactly what happens with our words. Once they're spoken, you have no control over them. And so it's a beautiful illustration, really, to talk about how powerful words are.
I love it. Yeah, and I heard that, and then that night, I was, you know how I love my podcasts. I was on a run, and I was listening to the 60 Minutes podcast. I don't know if you saw it, about Frances Haugen, the Facebook whistleblower, right? And it got me thinking about social media and the power, and like just this world in which the words are so powerful, and how they're also more accessible, and they're also more easily dispersed in the world through the different forms of social media and technology and all those kinds of things. And I just thought that was really interesting about the Facebook and how it was talking about hate and misinformation and political dissension, and how, you know, those things you can't take those back. It was just, I just thought it was real apt with that illustration.
I mean, I think most of us would applaud that whistleblower. I mean, I would suspect, I know the Congress did, mostly because I think we can all sort of agree that social media is a little bit out of control, and it feels like there's no way to control it.
Right.
But what I think is interesting about that conversation going on right now, and this woman asking for regulation, that's what she's doing. She's not asking for social media to be shut down. She's just saying regulate, is that we as a culture, and I think as humanity or humans, we often point to the institution, the organization, the business as being the problem. But Facebook and social media is built around us. So if we don't contribute to it, there is no social media.
So, it wouldn't exist if we didn't download the app on our phones.
So social media might guide us, and they shouldn't be doing that with their algorithms. But it's certainly us contributing to the problem. So where is the mirror there?
Right. Well, I think it's interesting because we always look at like Mark Zuckerberg or whoever CEO, right? And we always, if there's something that we feel like wrong, that we point to them and say, you know, it's your fault, and instead, you're kind of saying, well, we got to look at ourselves. It's, you know, he's just a conduit, or he's just kind of a businessman, or she is just a businessman, and they're just doing their job. But like, we are the consumers, and we are at fault as much because we are consuming the product, so to speak.
Totally. Right? And so the question is, where, with morality, where does it end and where does it begin, or who's responsible? I mean, I think we do this in relationship to God as well. We like to point the finger and say, God, look at the problems in our world.
You are the CEO of the world.
Right?
I mean, not that, right.
But why? But we don't recognize that that we don't point the finger back to ourselves and say, you're the reason why.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, if you look at the creation story, right? God obviously is the creator, but then he created humanity to be co-creators with him. Like, in other words, we have dominion in a way that's loving and caring for the world, and like, we're to be co-creators and participate in that. And yet, it seems like now, because of sin, there's this disconnect. And now when things are wrong, we're like, God, you've screwed it all up. And it's like, actually, if we look at the story of humanity, we're the ones that have actually screwed it all up.
Yeah, you know? And what to jump on that, the idea of sin, that's what I'm learning most about this whistleblower, is that really, you had mentioned a quote that she said, which I'd love for you to read, about anger and how. Go ahead. Read
so
it.
in the podcast, she said it was easier to inspire people to anger than any other emotion.
Isn't that interesting?
I thought that was so fascinating. I was like, ooh, like, there was a friend of mine years ago who said that the two strongest emotions in the world are love and anger. And he just talked about how anger is so much more easily accessible and more, and I was like, oh, that is both scary and like sad.
Yeah, and that we've built this system, or systems in our world, not just Facebook, not just social media, but where we capitalize on people's emotions.
Right.
And so, do you think that's okay? I guess, where is the moral line in that?
I mean, yeah, because if you think about it, like restaurants we choose, they capitalize on how we feel about the food, how we feel about the environment. They want us to feel good and happy and whatever. And so, and if we do, then we'll spend our money there. Or music we listen to. So if you really, in anything you look at, kind of capitalizes on our emotion. There's not a lot of emotionally neutral things that I can think about.
Totally. I mean, even the church, we capitalize on people's emotions to some degree. It might not be that intentional, but so where's the line in that? Like, clearly emotion is a part of the human condition and that, but for places like social media to make money off of creating spaces, algorithms, to increase people's anger, to build a business on, that's where it feels wrong. But where is the line in that?
Yeah, and and maybe the question is like, what's our role in that line, or where do we find that line in ourselves, right? Because obviously something's going to evoke love or any kind of emotion, right? But are we going to allow that emotion? Are we going to ride that wave and respond and make decisions based on that emotion, or are we going to have the fortitude or the internal discipline to go, like, hold on, what is this spurring in me? What is the truth in this? And I think so often we are just, responding and basing everything off of our emotions, and they always say, emotions are fleeting, right? And so you got to kind of let the emotions, dissipate or settle, and then kind of, take your time. But that means we'd have to be slow. That means we'd have to be thoughtful, and we don't like that.
We don't like that. I know, it reminds me of, when the scriptures talk about, because I think consumption is built upon emotions. Like, we consume food. When we say we consume food, we do so often out of emotional place. We consume worship in that way. Oftentimes, we obviously consume in social media platforms. We consume movies. All these pleasurable things. But the scriptures, when Apostle Paul talks about taking every thought captive, so that that we are not consumers, we are more in the category of viewers, thoughtful viewers in this world. And so what does it mean in our discipleship to become thoughtful Christians? It doesn't mean that our emotions don't matter. Right. And they're not valid and valuable in the kingdom of God. But what does it mean to take our emotions and place them before God as an offering, I guess?
Because if we thought the emotions were evil, then we're saying that God messed up and created, because he made us emotional beings. Yeah, he says take every thought captive, and then the second thing he says to make it obedient to Christ, which I think is the key. It's like as we lay those things down and say, God, what is good, what is true, what is right, what is pure, because Paul talks about that in Philippians, right? Whatever is pure, whatever is true, whatever is good, think about these things. And so I think we just have to be more thoughtful internally, understanding who we are, which is hard, and that, and then we just need to slow down. There's something about Sabbath, right? That kind of we keep coming back to. It seems like that is a theme that we keep coming back to, and no matter what, it's like Sabbath. Oh yeah, that's a time that we kind of are able to reconnect with God, understand who we are, what is our identity, and then when we go out into the world and go back to not to our real world, right? Not that those are separate, but when we go kind of into our daily living, we're more connected. We understand who we are, who God is, what He desires, and we look for those kingdom purposes in the world, and we want to go after those, and whatever that might be.
And so to bring it back to the conversation that's happening around social media, because I am a person that that's hurting our world. I'm just going to cut it off. I'm just going to cut it off. So cancel. But I don't know that that's the best solution, right? That there's obviously value in the connecting of people across culture and across age and across all those things.
Totally.
But what does it mean as Christians to be thoughtful about how we engage and what we say? And
right. So there was a book I read a couple of years ago. There was that he talks about. There's kind of two responses that we can have to social media. One is like we just embrace it and just say that's just how it is, and we just consume it for all of its benefits and challenges and everything in between. And then the other side is this kind of neo-Luddite or this Luddite kind of like anti-technology and like no technology and even do everything we can to destroy it or get rid of it. And both of those didn't seem good. And so this guy wrote this book called Digital Minimalism, and he talks about this third way, so to speak. He doesn't use that language. That was kind of my language, but we've been talking about that the last few weeks. But this third way is digital minimalism, in which people basically take toll of their life and look at their life and say, what do I value most? And what are the things that I value most? And then what does technology contribute to that? And where does it not? And where it doesn't contribute to the thing I value most, and I just need to cut that off and not use it for that. And where it's useful to feed that value, what I value most, and I'll use it for that. But they find that it's very minimal because usually what they value is relationships, time, and those kind of things. And our phones or social media just consume those or make them false. And so I thought it was a really interesting kind of conclusion he came to as far as like digital minimalism and taking stock of how we use it and then how people are becoming minimalists.
Yeah, and then that minimalist space, because there's still an engagement to some degree.
Right.
Social media, even in a minimalist space, when we approach social media or other platforms, we approach in our relationship with God. Sometimes I feel like people check their like true self at the door,
right,
when they start engaging in a social media platform.
Right.
It's like you wouldn't say this to people face to face.
Right.
So there's no civility or there's no, and it's like they check it at the door,
right,
and then they're like, but because this is safe, I can put this on here and no one's going to confront me, or they'll do it in a way that I can engage as I choose.
Right.
But it's your whole self that you bring even to the social media platform. And I think we have Christians need to be mindful of that. And I think we need to be repentant in that space when we are checking God at the door before we enter into that space. I mean, I'm shocked sometimes by what I see people write in these eras, and the feathers just keep going. And you're like, you can't take this back.
Well, so to bring it even closer to home, it's really interesting because I've been thinking about that, and it's like obviously we've made this big push to have this like online ministry, and so it's a challenge for us as we build or as we continue to use this platform to help people that legitimately need it, to make sure that we're asking that question, like, is this useful to people, and are the people that are hopefully engaging or responding, is it useful to them, or is it giving them a reason to cut off? Like, are they cutting themselves off or cutting, are they not engaging in relationships because they're like, oh, that checkbox, I've already got my God time, or I went to church online, so I'm good, and they just kind of check the box.
What type of theology is it communicating?
Right, so I think it's really, that'll be a challenge for us as we continue to grow this. So I'm excited that we're doing it, but I'm also like, should we be doing it at the same time? So should I have this job anyway? So anyway.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much, and so we'll hopefully see you next week. Remember, subscribe and continue to like the videos if you like them. Hopefully you do. Continue to like, and also on the comments, write down things how you're engaging in this process. We want to hear from you, or if you have questions that you're like, oh, I want you guys to talk about this, or hopefully you can cover something along this line. We would love to hear from you. So like on Facebook, subscribe, all that good stuff on YouTube, and we'll see you next week. Thanks. Bye-bye.